Well, I'm not a lover of Calvin, because it seems to me that Calvin, at his worst, has no free will for us, and that, I think, is patently wrong. Quite clearly, there's a cooperative effort between God and man. God is very thrilled with his creation. The potential of man is huge. Man is supposed to be the image of God, functioning as co-regent for God, uniquely using his talents to bless others and to be blessed. But having said that, the element of choice is quite clearly there. To say that God has predestined all this would really negate then our part, our choice. And I'm thinking of the text in John where Jesus said, if any man desires to know, then he will find out whether he, Jesus, is speaking the truth. I think that's in John 14, isn't it? But there's always that if. There's always the cooperative effort. We are to work out our own salvation because God is at work in us. That's a beautiful text. It's a cooperative effort. Otherwise, we become simply pawns in God's hand. That is not a good idea. So the double predestination by which God has determined before the foundation of the world that certain people are going to be lost in their system, tortured forever, I find that unspeakably awful. As some Calvinists don't believe in all the 5 points of Calvinism. I think that's just wrong. Clearly, Jesus said, if you persist to the end, you're going to be saved. If you don't, you won't be saved. So the once saved, always saved idea is false. To Paul's writings, we are being saved in the New Testament, being saved. Salvation had a beginning when we embarked on the race, but you don't win the race until you get to the gold medal at the end. You don't win the race immediately. So once saved, always saved is not going to work at all as a doctrine. The idea that you accepted Jesus in some vague way, and it wouldn't matter what you did the rest of your life, you'd still be saved. That's just nonsense. That really destroys, I think, the whole exciting tension. That's not to say we should go around deploring every day, where there's a place supposed to repent of sin ongoing. I see that. But we should have a positive view of salvation, but not to the point of thinking that we could not go wrong. In fact, Paul himself said that he worked on himself so that lest he might become a castaway. Very, very, very appropriate, that verse, indeed. That sounds like extinction burned up, and even Babylon, the city, will be burned up, although that process is described as a torment. It actually is a burning up in a single day. So extinguishing of life is the result of persistent rebellion against God. The incorrigibly wicked do not survive. They are not tortured, I think, forever.
So it's not unconditional. It's
No.
always, the whole passage actually here,
Clearly.
there are a lot of ifs.
Absolutely.
He goes on to say, if you obey
Yes.
my commandments,
Absolutely.
you will remain in my life.
Salvation is now closer to us, Paul said, I think in Romans 13. It's now closer to us than when we first believed. That's interesting. Salvation is very often and largely a future event for us, and we are being saved. That's most important.